All right, folks, we're now joined by the Director of Public Prosecution, Paula Llewellyn, to tell us what's been happening in the court and how to make the system more efficient. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome to Smile
Good
Jamaica.
morning. Good morning to you both. Good morning to your
Before we
listeners.
go to your very serious job, we just
This is also serious.
yeah, we just had this gentleman who says the landlord didn't want him to pick the mango, so he just ate it on the tree. Can he be charged for that, ma'am?
As far as I'm concerned, I would prefer an indictment for simple larceny or malicious destruction of property. Because if he left the seed on the tree still hanging, then that would be malicious destruction of property. But if he ate it off the tree so there was nothing left,
But
that
the
would be
landlord
larceny.
said don't pick it. He didn't pick it, ma'am.
No. The law is the law. Although some people think the law can be an axe. Once there was intention to permanently deprive the possessor or the owner of his property, and there's what we call in law aspiratation, that is, it moved from the place it was, even into his
belly.
stomach, that would have been simple
Movements.
larceny.
All
So I
right.
certainly would have prosecuted him.
Good to
Okay.
see you, ma'am.
He would have to plead guilty.
Can we please ask Madam
to see you,
DPP
ma'am.
what we really want to talk about?
We read, and we've been reading this for a long time about backlogs in the court, and I know that the Honourable Justice Mr. Sykes wants things to be changed, but that can be misleading, can it? Just to hear say you have backlog in the court when we don't fully
Well,
understand.
you will always have backlog. I, from time to time, meet with directors of public prosecutions from the Caribbean islands, of the Caribbean islands. Every country has backlog. And technically, you would have to have a backlog because if there is an offense committed, it will take some time to go through the court system. So what we have to do as administrators in the court system is to minimize and seek to set standards, as certainly this Chief Justice, who is a very data-driven, technologically savvy
Yes.
person. I've
Yes.
known him for many, many years.
Yes.
And what he's doing is setting time standards. And all the stakeholders are obligated, depending on the exigencies, to keep those time standards.
Yeah,
So
but
what ideally in the High Court, you perhaps would wish to have a turnaround time of perhaps within 2 years of the matter coming into the lower courts. Because if it is to go to the High Court, like a murder case, you have to have a committal proceeding because the parish
does that
court
mean?
judge,
What is a
the
committal?
parish court judge does not have the power to try, for example, a murder case. It has to be done in the High Court before a judge, High Court judge, and possibly a jury. So you have a process where the parish court decides, is there sufficient? Once there is a prima facie case there, and there's sufficient evidentiary material on the file, then it will be committed for trial. But when it comes to the High Court now, it goes through another process. So administratively, you may have 1,049 cases, as we do,
Correct.
listed in the court for the Easter session, which is from late April to the 31st of July. But you will have, as we do so far, only 98 cases listed for trial. And this is coming about because this Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Sykes, has as one of his main policy imperatives the issue of trial or hearing date certainty. So it means that what he has done is prepared the circuit lists for the next 4 years. So you know exactly when Hanover will be, sitting, Clarendon, St. Catherine. So what he's doing now is saying, okay, instead of packing up 8 cases in one court, when you can only try one court at a time, the public of this country who we serve and some of the cynical, uninformed commentators must see demonstrated administrative astuteness coming from the system where if the matter is set for trial, even if it's set 1 year from now, having just come into the system on the list in the High Court, the witnesses, the victims, the police, the media, and the public will know that on that day, 1 year from now, the matter will be tried. So there is an obligation on the prosecutor and the defense counsel to be ready because we have gone through what you call the plea and case management process, where the matter was set for mention, file to be completed, indictment to be preferred, also defense counsel to be retained or to be assigned, the prosecution has to serve the papers. And what we have been finding with this enhanced criminal case management is we are getting several matters where people decide to plead guilty, taking advantage of the Criminal Justice Administration Amendment Act, where you have discounts for pleading guilty of up to 50% if you plead guilty after the first relevant date, which is after the papers are served.
Okay.
So this is good. This is good progress.
Well, you know, it is.
Yeah.
Because what is happening is that there are time standards. It's a little rough on occasion, but it is causing a process that was started by the former Chief Justice, but I would say it is being accelerated. So when you have only 98 cases, perhaps 4 years ago, you may have had 200 or 300 cases set for trial in the particular Easter term, and you would only reach 120. But what you would do is have the courts really clogged up, so you couldn't have that pierce-like scrutiny of the cases, so that if it is viable, well, you go forward or you plead guilty, or the prosecution, you put up or you shut up. If you don't have a viable case, then your duty is to offer no evidence. So you have that process being accelerated.
Okay.
So although we started on the list because of the matters carried forward and the new matters coming in the court of 1,049, when I disaggregated the figures, or my staff, you have 709 cases of that number having been put on the mention list, plea and case management hearing list, and for bail application. So you have 340 cases that have been set for trial up to 2021 so far. So what you have for the rest of the year, you have for Easter term 98 cases to spread between 5 courts in the home circuit.
That's between, when is the end of the Easter term?
The end of the Easter term is July 31st.
Okay.
So what is happening is that the court now is focusing on making sure that whatever is set for trial, there's a real likelihood of hearing
That was my
date
next question.
certainty. So it means that attorneys after a while will have no need to triple book or double book and say, oh, you know, normally they overpack the list and you can only try one case at a time. Let me also go and set matters in St. Catherine and Clarendon and in the parish court. So it means that everybody knows that once the date is set, the case must go on. And it's only barring an emergency, such as, for example, a witness has dropped dead the day before, or defense counsel has had some act of God happening to his client. Why the case should not
You have
go on.
3 sessions, ma'am, and your deputy DPP, Mr. Taylor, is suggesting that there shouldn't be a break. It should go right through. Is that?
Well, you know, when you are the DPP, according to the Constitution, the powers vest not in the office of the DPP, it vests in the DPP. So I am accountable for all decisions made island-wide by all Crown Council.
So you don't buy no break?
So I give, should I put it, a certain amount of autonomy to all my agents to be able to express themselves, but I reserve the right at all times, since I am ultimately accountable, to add clarity. That perhaps is his opinion and I respect it, but as far as I'm concerned, every now and again, yes, we have high volume, island-wide, but the system needs a break to replenish itself. So we have the legal vacation, and I know I have written to the former Chief Justice in the past, and this Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Brandside, has signaled that the legal vacation will remain the legal vacation because the judges are able to write their judgments, we are able to look at, read our case law, and the system replenishes itself. We are able to liaise with the police, look back on our case stock, try to refine our preparation. So I think it's a win-win going forward. You are refreshed, so you are able to be to add even more intellectual acuity to what you are doing. Because ultimately, it's about service to the public. It's not the public who serve us, you know. The Chief Justice and I are serving the public. So we have to continuously review the systems to make sure that we're administratively astute.
How do we align best practice-wise? I hear you talk about cases being scheduled for 21, 22.
No, 2021 so far.
2021, 20, right,
Yes.
2021.
Yes.
Regionally, how do we stack up? I don't want to talk about internationally because I know we have a lot of work to do.
Well, I
but
can
that
tell
is
you,
one concern people have.
speaking to my colleague DPPs in the Caribbean, everybody has a tremendous backlog. And it's a matter of how you manage. In fact, Barbados, the DPP and I had spoken at a conference a few months ago. And I advised her she was telling me something that they had 2 criminal courts where 2 high court judges, they had a backlog of about 900 cases. And I said to her, but how are two judges going to try 900 cases, even in a year? And I said to her, why don't you recommend to the authorities that they get more criminal judges and you get more staff for your office? And just last week, it was sent around we have a chat group, DPPs, and I saw it come out in the newspaper that the Prime Minister, that they will be advertising, which is unheard of. They have set up a Judicial Services Commission, and they'll be advertising for 2 more judges to man the criminal courts, and she has indicated to me that she'll be getting some more staff. So I can tell you, there's backlog everywhere. In Canada, in America, when I speak to my colleagues all over, I'm a member of the International Association of Prosecutors, and in Europe, everywhere, you have backlog because you cannot physically do every case within 2 months or 3 months once it hits the system. But the thing is to minimize it and give the public that we serve a sense that the system is credible, that it is maximizing operational efficiencies. And I can tell you, as I said, this Chief Justice, he's very data-driven. So it's a consultative process. His judges report to him. My Crown Counsel report to me. We have the input of the defense bar, and you have the input of the police, and we all constantly consult and collaborate to tweak the system to make sure
Do you
that we
think
have
folks
these
are getting that
efficiencies.
sense that the system is becoming more efficient?
Well, I think I have been hearing and I've been seeing responses, letters to the public, and in our figures, we are seeing that with the plea negotiations legislation, we have been seeing with the informal pleas, we have been seeing many more guilty pleas and persons taking advantage of the sentencing discounts. And also, we have the agreed facts. We did a case in Hanover. I don't know if you remember a case where 6 members of a family in Hanover were totally annihilated. And my Crown Counsel there and the High Court judge, in a circuit that was only 4 weeks, you will have up to 120 cases. So if you are going to do a case with 26 witnesses, which you had in that case, it would take up the whole 4 weeks. But they were able to dispose of at least 40 cases and still do that case in a week and a half because 20 of the witnesses' statements were agreed between defense and the prosecution at the urging of the court.
Is that what
so you were able to complete the matter and the Crown had a conviction.
And is that what decides? Because I hear everything you say. I can't disagree with anything you say. But obviously there are some cases that go through a lot quicker than some.
Well, obviously, because the thing is that the issues are less complex. You would appreciate, for example, a case like Vibes Cartel. That was an extremely complex case, which took some 64 trial days over at least nearly 2.5 months. Now, if we had had the agreement of some of the forensic material or some of the witness statements, it would have perhaps cut the time in half. But you do have some cases where everything is an issue and the Crown is going to be put to a proof. And as I always say, this is not CSI or Law and Order,
not an
where the
In
commission
an hour,
of the offense, the apprehension of the offender, the trial, everything and the conviction takes place in a half an hour or 45 minutes. This is real life. And I think with the resources that we have, I think the Chief Justice, Sykes, is being very deliberative in looking at the low-hanging fruit in terms of how he reorganizes the system. And we at the Office of the DPP, and I know the private bar and the police are seeking to give him 100% support. Even though sometimes we will be put to the sword, but it means that we have to step up to the plate, pull up our socks, and recognize this is a new paradigm, and we are in the era of hearing date certainty, according to the Chief Justice, and enhanced criminal case management, which means that the cases that are not going anywhere will not go on the trial list to clog it up, and the cases where when counsel sees that this is a matter I should discuss with my client, plead guilty, that is the best for you, and take advantage of the sentence reductions and the sentencing guidelines. The plea is done early, and we don't have another case that is being tried.
Is there anything at all that you could comment about this young girl from Stirling Castle that was killed? Can you
Well,
say
first of
anything
all,
now?
I think it is so very unfortunate. There are two things. That case that riveted my attention, the very, very unfortunate scenario, which we see in our case files, and the jungle justice that was meted out to a member of the public who was denied due process because you are innocent until proven guilty by cogent, credible, reliable, admissible evidence in court. And the case, so we must not have that happening. And first of all, poor Shanti, I think the entire Jamaica, all of us are to blame. All of us are to blame because we must protect our children. So there are no excuses that anybody could give me. We are all to blame. And we have to set up systems, and where we have communities where they need assistance in better skills in terms of parenting. For example, Shante, listen, if the light is not working there, don't walk down there in the bush, or wait at so-and-so's place, our neighbor, and I will come for you. But be that as it may, it's a tragedy and we all mourn. The case with the teacher in Juneau, in Clarendon. I was in Clarendon at a banquet speaking a couple nights ago. And speaking to one of the police officers there, it is quite clear, and I think Superintendent Powell has gone public, that it's quite clear that persons in the community in Juneau saw what was happening, or they're aware of who did it. You cannot have people asking for justice, standing up in front of the television cameras, we want justice. And when they are put to the test, they don't recognize that justice commences from within the community. So if you have seen the commission of a crime, you must tell what you know. And by the way, let me commend these off-duty police officers who did their duty, saw the commission of an offense, and made sure that the public was protected.
Okay, we have to go to news, man. Thanks for coming.
You are so welcome.
A little disappointed that you would lock up the man for biting the man.
Well, it's the principle. You remember, I cannot use sympathy to look at a matter. I can be sympathetic, but when it comes to my duty as a prosecuting attorney, the law is the law. Some people think the law is an asset, but the law is the law.
Man like me look like you're lock up.
Well, you know, I could say to you, I will smile at you and say you are very handsome, but I have to prosecute you because you committed an offense.
Good to see you, man.
You are so welcome. Good to be here.
Director of Public Prosecution, Paul Llewellyn.
I could tell you quite a few things you could lock him up. Take a break, we'll be right back. Off air, off air.